Alright, you ever get in a rut, like a musical rut? Maybe you've been playing the same tunes for a while, can't seem to find the ability or the inspiration to learn some new ones. Maybe you're just not particularly happy with the way that your fingers have been working. It's happened to me pretty much every stage that I've been through, that I've been playing, and that's what we're talking about today, and more specifically, how to get out of it. I've been in a bit of a musical rut lately. That's why I haven't really posted a video in the past couple weeks. I've been playing with the band and working on stuff, but every time I sit down to play, I just can't really figure out what it is that I want to work on. What do I want to learn? And it happens to me. It's happened to me at every phase of my playing. When I first started, I'd be frustrated that I wasn't better. Or when I go to a session, I'd be frustrated that I didn't know all the tunes I wanted to play. I wanted to know them all, but I didn't, because it just takes time. And so each one of those steps was a little bit of a plateau that you had to kind of force your way through. And here's a couple of things that I would do, or that I have done anyway, to break through. If you're having trouble learning new tunes, maybe that's not what you ought to be working on. Maybe you ought to work on a particular phrase or a particular ornament. Maybe finding one specific thing in a tune that you could improve. Here's an example. We're playing the tune, what is it called? Boy, I'm just terrible with names. The Musical Priest. We've got that tune worked into a set, and we're finishing it a little bit differently. We've got one specific phrase. It's this phrase. A little bit different from the normal way to play that, or at least the normal way to end the tune. Just a little blurb of a phrase, but that's one that I would sit there and work on for maybe a half an hour, just to get it really perfect, get it exactly the way I wanted it. And you can kind of experiment with some changes to it, some slightly different rhythmic variations, some different ornaments, and sort of do a deep dive on what amounts to about a 2-bar phrase. You're not learning anything new as far as new tunes or really broadening your collection, but you are doing a deep dive, and I think that has some value, especially when it comes to getting out of a rut. You're doing something a little bit differently, and that's the goal here. Step 2, or option number 2 to break out of the rut, is spend a lot of time listening. And just like I would say try and play a little different, try and listen a little different also. Take that same deep dive approach and find a track that you're real familiar with, find a tune that you're real familiar with, and listen critically. Listen not just to flute or whistle or something that you're specifically trying to learn from. Listen to a rhythm player. Listen to how they're changing things up. Listen to how the dynamics of the tune change throughout the arrangement of the set, or through multiple tunes in a set. See how the whole track, the whole story of that set of tunes evolves. Again, listening differently and listening critically gives your brain something else to do rather than just mashing your fingers down and working on ornaments or working on exercises or working on tunes. It's another way to broaden your horizons, I think, in a way that might jumpstart you a little bit. I'm going to put a couple of my favorite tracks, my favorite critical listening tracks, let's call it, things where there's a lot of depth to it, a lot of different people to listen to, a lot of different variations and ornaments, things that might help just kind of jumpstart you a little bit. Now, my last desperation move is just try something different. Do something that you might never really play in a session or recording, or you might never use at all, but you're playing it just because you like it, not because you have to. Because I think that's really what kind of can get you back in the habit and get back playing again in a way that might be fun and make it worthwhile. So that's what I'm going to finish with today. It's a tune called The Harp and Shamrock. It's a hornpipe, and I've actually done another video for it where that little mystery link shows up if you want to kind of deep dive into the way that I would play it more traditionally, because it is a very stereotypical hornpipe, a fairly obscure one, but I'm going to play it a little differently. This is sort of inspired by a version of another hornpipe that the group Bohola did, which I'll link to down below. A really lovely take on that. Same kind of idea. Let's call this tune a rut buster, at least for me, purely for fun.